Look at your skin right now. Whatever color it is, it's not original. For most of human history, every human on Earth was the same color. Dark, almost black, no exception. Then something happened. A tiny genetic mutation spread through small groups of people and slowly changed the appearance of entire populations. Today, that mutation affects billions of people. But here's the strange part. It wasn't about race. It wasn't about identity. It was about survival. And the reason your skin looks the way it does today begins with a problem so dangerous it could wipe out an entire bloodline. To understand it, we need to go back, way back, long before cities, long before agriculture, long before the first written word. Around 1.5 million years ago, our ancestors lived under the African sun. And the African sun is not forgiving. Humans at that time had already lost most of the thick body hair that covered earlier primates. Scientists believe this happened because hair became a problem. Our ancestors were endurance hunters. They survived by chasing animals across vast distances until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. Fur traps heat, sweat removes it, and no animal on Earth sweats as efficiently as a human. Losing body hair turned us into long-distance running machines, but it created a new problem. Without fur, human skin was directly exposed to ultraviolet radiation. UV radiation damages cells. It destroys important nutrients. It increases the risk of skin damage. For a nearly hairless species living under one of the strongest suns on Earth, this should have been a disaster. But evolution already had a solution: melanin. Melanin is the pigment that gives skin its color. The more melanin you have, the darker your skin becomes. And melanin is incredibly good at absorbing ultraviolet radiation before it can damage the body. In other words, dark skin wasn't an accident. It was armor. A biological shield built by millions of years of natural selection. And for a very long time, it worked. Every human population on Earth carried that shield. Then, humans began leaving Africa. Around 60,000 to 70,000 years ago, small groups started moving into the Middle East, Europe, and Asia. At first, nothing changed. They still had dark skin. They still carried the same protective adaptation their ancestors had evolved under the African sun. But the further north they traveled, the stranger the environment became. The sunlight was weaker. The days were shorter. Winters became longer. Clouds blocked the sky for months at a time. And suddenly, the armor that had protected humans for hundreds of thousands of years started creating a new problem. Because sunlight doesn't just damage the body, it also powers it. When ultraviolet B rays hit your skin, your body produces vitamin D. And vitamin D is not optional. Without it, bones weaken. Immune systems suffer. Children develop skeletal deformities. Pregnancy becomes more dangerous. Entire populations can become less healthy. Dark skin blocks UV radiation extremely well. That's exactly why it evolved. But in northern environments with limited sunlight, that protection came at a cost. Too much protection. Imagine wearing heavy winter clothing in the middle of a desert. The thing keeping you alive in one environment becomes a burden in another. And that's when evolution started experimenting. Random mutations happen in every generation. Most disappear. Some do nothing. A few change everything. Somewhere in ancient Eurasia, a mutation appeared that slightly reduced the amount of melanin in human skin. The people carrying it had lighter skin. At first, the difference was small. Maybe nobody even noticed. But those individuals had one important advantage. Their skin absorbed sunlight more efficiently. They produced vitamin D faster. Their children survived more often. Their bones developed more normally. And over thousands of years, that tiny advantage became enormous. Natural selection began favoring lighter skin. Generation after generation, century after century, millennium after millennium, human populations slowly changed. Not because anyone chose it, not because one group was better than another, because evolution only cares about one thing: survival. And survival depends on the environment. What's fascinating is that this process happened multiple times. Many people imagine light skin appearing once and spreading everywhere, but genetics tells a different story. Different populations evolved lighter skin through different mutations. Europeans and East Asians both developed lighter skin, but some of the genes responsible are completely different. Evolution solved the same problem more than once, like different inventors independently building similar tools. The destination was similar, the path was not. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. If lighter skin was so useful, Why didn't everyone evolve it? Because sunlight never stopped mattering. Near the equator, ultraviolet radiation remained intense. Dark skin continued doing exactly what it had always done, protecting the body, protecting crucial nutrients like folate, protecting developing embryos during pregnancy, protecting against constant UV exposure. In those regions, lighter skin offered little benefit and potentially serious risks, so natural selection pushed in the opposite direction. The result was a balance, different environments applying different pressures producing different outcomes, the same species adapting in multiple directions at once. And that's why human skin color exists on a spectrum, not categories, not boxes, a spectrum, a map of where our ancestors lived and what challenges they faced. Every shade tells part of a migration story. Every pigment level reflects thousands of years of environmental pressure. Your skin color is not just a trait, it's a historical record, a biological fossil, a message written by sunlight itself. But modern life has made this story harder to see. Today, humans can cross the planet in hours. People live far from the environments their ancestors adapted to. Someone whose lineage evolved near the equator may spend their entire life in northern Europe. Someone whose ancestors adapted to low sunlight may live under tropical skies. Technology changed the rules. Sunscreen, vitamin supplements, indoor lighting, modern medicine. For the first time in human history, survival is no longer determined entirely by the environment that shaped us. And yet the old adaptations remain, still written inside our DNA, still visible every time we look in a mirror. What's remarkable is how recent much of this change actually is. Humans have existed for roughly 300,000 years. Some of the major genetic changes associated with lighter skin became common only within the last several thousand years. That's a blink of an eye in evolutionary time. The version of humanity most people think of as ancient is actually very new. For most of our story, humanity looked very different. And that's the part many people never hear. Human diversity didn't begin with separation. It began with similarity. Every person alive today shares common ancestors. Every person alive today carries traces of the same ancient African populations. The differences came later, created by geography, by climate, by sunlight, by adaptation. Not because humans became different species, but because one species learned how to survive almost everywhere. And maybe that's the most extraordinary part of the story. When people look at human skin color, they often see difference. Evolution sees the opposite. It sees a species so adaptable that it spread from one region of Africa to nearly every corner of the planet. A species that changed itself to survive deserts, forests, mountains, islands, tundra, and frozen coastlines. The colors came later. The connection came first. Your skin color feels personal. It feels permanent. It feels like part of who you are. But in the timeline of human history, it's surprisingly recent. A thin layer of adaptation covering something much older. Because beneath every shade of skin on Earth is the same story. Separated us into different environments, you would find a world where every human looked remarkably similar. A world where the colors we argue about today didn't exist yet. Only people, standing beneath an African sky, unaware that sunlight was already happening. The same ancestors, the same species, the same long journey under the same sun.